Hey guys, Fire here. Now we finally had our last preseason patch. We can actually start looking at Season 8, and today we're going to be looking at the AD carry meta and what the best AD carries are going to be in Season 8 to start with at least. I'm going to be looking to do these for every single role. I think if you want me to do that, let me know with a comment or a like on this video. We'll rank all of the AD carries though from 5 stars all the way down to 2 stars, so from best to worst basically, and show you how good they are at winning solo queue. So 5-star champions to start with, the best of the best. These guys you can beat every single game. That's partly why they are in this tier. Now remember, for a video like this, is partly my opinion, but actually mostly it's just stat based. I've been looking at a lot of different stats for this video and keeping track a ton since 7.24b. So at number 1 is going to be Ezreal. Still insanely strong after the nerfs in 7.24b. The Kleptomancy gold is just ridiculous. You use that for more items and then you snowball your lead from range as well. It's a really big thing that most people don't think about with Ezreal at the moment. Is he is not the highest damage AD carry in the game. Well, actually, okay, if you look at the end game graph and stuff, he is the highest damage AD carry, but it's because it's poke damage. Like in an actual full 5-on-5 fight, Tristana probably would be doing more, but the difference is Ezreal is safe to do his damage from range with his Q, so he doesn't die as much as other AD carries. You want to be fighting early really and ending a game before 35 minutes. Even this strong, like how you are in the meta right now, you are not designed to be a late game champion. So if you take it late game, you are running the risk of like a Vayne overtaking you and just kind of like winning instead of you. You want to be farming with your autos, a poke with your Q, so you get your Kleptomancy stacks. That's really how the lane phase works. As long as you kite fights and poke and stuff, you'll honestly be fine. The only bad phase is like your late game really, and that is what the nerf did in 7.24b. It didn't touch the area he was strong, it just made his weaker part weaker. So Vayne is our only other 5-star champion, and basically because you can actually go even with Ezreal and come out on top actually, especially late game. Like after 30 minutes into a game, Vayne is insane. She is so good. She has like great keystones right now, fleet footwork, the healing scales really well with the crit build. Yeah, pressy attack for early damage, lethal tempo is insane damage for team fights as well, definitely underrated. She took a really big rise in win rate actually after 7.24b, mainly because of the Misfortune drop, which we'll talk about in a little bit. There are a lot of Misfortune nerfs, and Misfortune held her back a lot with her poke and a burst, and the Vayne just really couldn't answer. You want to be farming as a priority, obviously. Short trades, you can actually fight Arthur level 6, which is good because we're having a lot of action bot lane, but you're really picking her for team fights. The only bad stuff really, your short range and like damage is flying around absolutely everywhere in preseason right now. It can sometimes be pretty hard to play fights. The 4 stars are still insane champions. They're very strong, and they have the potential to completely carry a game. We're going to start with Jhin, and he is one of the most popular AD champions since the changes. He can dominate early game, and that's partly why. Bang basically got to rank 1 in career with Jhin, Misfortune a little bit as well. He has really high burst potential and high range as well. The reason he isn't into 5-star is because Ezreal is a very similar idea, and Vayne just outscales him. So they kind of just do his job a little bit better, or like Ezreal does his job better, Vayne kind of just outscales and takes over late game a little bit more. You want to be aggressive early, obviously. Poking, that's one of your biggest strengths. Snipe with your ultimate as well to get a few cheeky kills. You don't really have any proper mobility though, and that's a really bad side of Jhin actually. He's a very easy target in fights right now for a lot of these assassins. Tristana is going to be the next one. Since 7.24 and 7.24b, she has just been getting much better. Crit champions in general have been getting better actually. Same with Vayne. Misfortune and Ezreal were the real issues, I think, like for these crit champions. Poke damage was too much to deal with. Both of them are a little bit weaker. Not as much now, I guess. Like Tristana is also very safe though, meaning you can survive a lot of the damage throwing around in the game in preseason. Vayne seems to be kind of just better as a crit champion for now. That's the reason Tristana isn't in the like 5-star tier. Without 3 items, you can lack a bit of damage as well, which does hold you back. You can go aggressive in the lane phase, which is really good with Tristana, but ultimately, you are just a really safe, long-range hyper carry for the late game. There is no way to really trade though, well, unless you go full on. Like if you actually dive in and stuff, that's really good for Tristana, but there isn't really any other way for her to trade in very short bursts or anything like that. That's the reason poke was so good against her. Xayah is probably a little bit of a surprise, but almost a 60% win rate on Xayah mains in 7.24b, which shows her potential. It's really strong. Also, since 7.24b, she has massively shot up. Fleet footwork buffs were really good for her, and obviously a lot of poke champions falling down means crit champions are just a bit better. She is very safe with her ultimate, similar to Tristana. Good dueling, good wave clear as well, and good late game damage with her W. The reason she isn't higher is because she's a bit too item reliant. Kind of like Tristana actually. She can struggle quite a lot if she's behind, and she's also short range. She is really good at fighting early though, like the crowd control, with the crowd control tank actually, because she has a root as well. If you layer the two together, together, it's more than enough time to kill somebody, and it's a lot of damage as well. The short range kind of can put her in danger in this meta, which is why she might not seem as strong as she actually is. On a weaker AD carry player, it's very hard to actually play team fights as Xayah right now. Misfortune is our next one, and this might be a little bit too generous. Actually, 7.24B had 5 nerfs in it to Misfortune, 6 actually, if you want to count it that way, and she's really taking a hit right now. Definitely still very strong. I've still played her. She's still pretty good. Still won with her, which is nice. That hasn't really changed that much. Her poke and burst are really good, but it's more from her Q, right? If you can hit that Q, especially a crit, half health enemy AD carry, you get lane control, you get a lot of kills that way as well, and it's actually really easy to play, which is really good. The issue is that if you're not able to close out a game as fast, this season tends to be like a lot of early game focus and stuff, but it's actually getting a little bit later, which is kind of why with the nerfs it's a bit more of a problem, if that makes sense. KALISTA is going to be our last 4-star champion, and not because she's one of my favorite champions. Actually, I'm not biased at all. She even could be higher. I think I might be being a bit too harsh on her. We'll see how season 8 unfolds, but right now 7.24B actually helped her out a decent amount. You can really control the lane, you get a lot of kills. This whole like tank support engage meta with ignite and stuff is perfect for her. She really didn't like protection and sensor like cop blocking out their entire game. You're actually quite safe as well, relatively. Anyway, you can kite quite a lot of the meta picks at the moment. You can also build more defense than normal AD carry, which can actually really help out. There are 2 major issues though. So one, versus poke, it really sucks. You can't get in range, you can't burst either. You can't actually really do anything, honestly. It's so frustrating. Also versus crit champions, unless you bone them early, you will actually be losing late game. So like Vayne, Tristana, and Xayah, we've already talked about, they're above her, and that is one of the reasons why. Late game, they will take over completely. So 3 stars have some kind of like obvious weakness that lets them down, I guess, and that's why they're in the 3-star tier. They are still really, really good though. These are still good AD carries. You can definitely still win with them. They're just not quite at the level of the 4-star or the 5-star tier. Sivir could honestly be in 4 stars, I think, at the moment. She's actually really good with fleet footwork. That buff definitely helped her out majorly. Good in this meta as well. Spell shield to kind of stay a bit safer. Even though she's short range, the spell shield helps out quite a lot. Just AFK push the lane as well. Like into tower, there's nothing they can really do. It's a really good anti-aggression tool. Like they can't really fight you if they're farming under the tower, right? If that makes sense. The obvious weakness is that if she gets caught, she can end up being blown up pretty much instantly. There's not really that much you can do about it. And you really need items to do damage as well. You like 3 items, you are great. Before then, not so much really. You want to push hard, you want to deny farm, chip away the tower, and just farm for those 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 items. Basically, that's how you play Sivir. Short range, and honestly, always the same thing of she is not designed as a solo carry champion really. So like a Tristana, a Vayne, a Xayah, they're actually built to carry a game. Sivir is more of like a utility champion. We're going to look at ASHE, but this is for Comet ASHE only, not the other builds. There are some obvious weaknesses to Comet ASHE, I think, but the poke is really, really strong. Plus the slow, you get guaranteed damage from your Comet, which is great. I never really thought I would see the day that ASHE is listed as a good matchup against Draven, which seems kind of ridiculous, but basically Draven can't get near because you poke him and slow him and run away. Your poke isn't quite as strong after the few nerfs, but that's kind of why she's 3 stars, honestly. But you still have uses for sure. You can arrow, you can poke. It's actually really, really good for controlling the lane phase. You don't really have that much burst damage outside of lane though, and you're so cooldown reliant with this build at the moment. If you don't have arrow and you don't have your W volley, you don't really actually add that much damage because, well, you don't have a pressy attack or anything like that as your other keystone. So Twitch is next up, and just to say, if you're good with Twitch, he could be 5 stars. He could be 4 stars at the very, very least. For the rest of us, games aren't really going late enough to really get to like the Twitch hyper carry stage. You have to get yourself ahead. You have to roam. That's a little bit harder to do. Vayne is also ripping him in the preseason. I don't really know why. The range advantage for Twitch used to be pretty good, but Vayne is just like tearing him a new one at the moment since the preseason started. The lane phase for Twitch can be abused pretty heavily, not really by the AD carry, but by the support. An ignite support like a Leona or an ALISTA can really mess you up. It's actually pretty sad. There is less protection for him in preseason as well, with less sensor and less Lulu and stuff like that. It's more designed, honestly, to jump on you, lock you down, or kill you, and that's not really what Twitch wants. Comet Varus is a bit different as well. Like, again, if you look at challenger games and stuff like that, he's probably 5-star tier or at the very top of 4-star tier. They play him all the time. But for us, he is a massive risk. If you get behind, Varus really isn't that good. He doesn't really bring that much, and it can be really hard to play, actually. I feel like it took a bit of a hit this patch as well with the nerfs. It can be solid, but it can be awful as well at the same time. If you don't feed him, like, he won't really be able to do much. He needs to be ahead. That is the main point. So Kog'Maw can actually be really good, but he can also kind of be really bad. He is getting better though, which is really good. He's just kind of easy to focus. We might see him come up a bit more actually, but he's about average really. Like, if you can't get into range, you can't really do anything, and that's obviously what a lot of this meta is right now with the damage and the poke and stuff. You don't have a sense of support to protect you. You don't have a team comp. You don't have any tanks to protect you either. You do have a lot of damage though, after lethal tempo buffs and the potent nerfs, which is really good for him. Cog mains are doing pretty well at the moment. Your weakness really is a lack of burst damage, I think, more than anything. Like, Misfortune can chunk him really hard before Cogmore can really do anything. Like, if you Q bounce him, if you E him, if you ult and stuff, Cogmore can do literally nothing. I know I'm going to annoy a lot of Draven mains with this one. He is not actually much worse than any of the tier 3s, 3-star champions. All of these are pretty good, and it might be a bit harsh to actually put him down here. Still really good early, but like, he misses further a battle, I think, that's for sure. Aerie and Klepto are pretty decent as keystones right now. Press attack is average, I guess. It's kind of hard in this meta though, where range is just beating everything else. He can't get close to do anything most of the time. It's really frustrating. It's not the Draven player that's the problem. It's just like the rest of the picks are kind of designed to dick on him. That is the obvious downside, really. You don't feed him, poke him from range. There's nothing that the Draven player can really do unless you go super, super ham early. Right, 2 stars. Last 2 picks if you're keeping track. KAITLYN, they're really struggling actually because she wants to PvE. She wants to push really hard, take towers, farm, and everybody else wants to fight. That's not how KAITLYN works at all. She is very safe, and late game she is still very good, but her mid game is too weak in comparison to like Vayne and Tristana, Xayah, Jinx and stuff even. Like, they are doing the same job, but just a lot better, and they do way more damage. She can't really carry because of her lack of damage until she has a lot more items, if that makes sense. You will need to push really heavily, poke, take towers. You can still win that way. It's just a lot harder. So with that last one, Lucian, if it's going to annoy you that I don't have a 1-star AD carry, Lucian is basically 1-star. Honestly, I just don't really want to put him in it because I used to main him and it feels really bad. Supposed to be a lane bully, but can't really do that anymore. And in team fights, he gets outranged massively, like really heavily by these crit champions. The issue, I think, is if you use a crit build, you kind of scale a bit too slow in comparison to other crit users, and you're just not as good either. If you use a blade build, then yes, you can get ahead early, but everyone else will just outscale you, and it feels really bad. Basically, like, Lucian has kind of lost what he's good at. He's lost his identity, I guess, what he's designed for. There isn't really a job that he does better than any other AD carry. So that wraps up all of the AD carries ranked from 5 stars, ranked from best down to the worst. Don't stop playing things just because I put them in a lower category or something than you're hoping for. It's just to give you an idea of what the meta is going to look like in Season 8. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, all that lovely stuff. But for now, I'll leave you with the robots.